Hi, Ben.
Hey, Carl. Oh, I didn't say hi, Carl. I said, hey, Carl.
You are terrible at this.
We are so bad at this. This is just like perpetually getting worse and worse. It's a fire
Yeah,
dumpster.
it
Uh,
really a fire dumpster,
is that what people say? Do they not say
dumpster
that?
fire,
A dumpster
dumpster
fire.
fire.
I,
Yeah.
you know what? I haven't been in the States for too long, so I'm losing my slang.
Well, I think what's interesting about that idea is that a dumpster fire is a fire where it should not be, but I feel like a fire dumpster is a dumpster that is specifically allocated for fires.
Fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we have going on is a fire dumpster.
On that note, hi Ben again.
Hi, Carl. And how are you today?
I'm a sleepy little boy.
Yeah.
Just getting over everybody being sick for weeks at a time, and
It's winter,
yeah,
man. It's winter.
it's winter. It's not great. But
Yeah.
how are you?
We're getting by, another day, another chance to survive out here in the Middle East and and try to do what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I already told you, Carl, but now I'll tell the audience. I'm drinking a beer, so hopefully I don't get too loopy. We'll try to stay coherent on this lovely podcast episode.
I, for one, would love to see you loopy.
Let's get loopy.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm drinking coffee, so I'll just get even more wired and fast talking than I already am in my natural state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll
I
work
love a
out in the
little
end.
coffee, but I can't really do it at 9 p.m. It's just a bit
That's
too
fair.
late. It's
That's
just
fair.
a bit too late. But I did have a third cup today. I usually only do two. I had a third cup. So hopefully we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so Carl, today, you wanted to talk about raising your rates. And I also wanted to talk about raising your rates. And what better topic to talk about than raising your rates? So hopefully we can all give ourselves a raise. And there's a lot of, I guess, entry points, that we could get into. Like, how often do you do it? Like, how high do you raise them? Do you, balance it according to inflation? Like, what's the first thing you want to talk about when it comes to raising your rates, Carl?
The first thing I'll say is do it.
Do it now.
Yeah, do it. No, I mean, you brought up a really interesting point about inflation, and that's something that I try to remind my students and friends about. It's that people will stay at the same rates for quite a long time, whether that's months or years, and the price of everything else is going up a lot, right? I don't know. I'm assuming it's not great over where you are, but even in the States, it's pretty bad. And just the idea of keeping the same rate that you've had for the past year or two, especially even for return clients, I think it's something that we need to remember is that everything is getting more expensive because that's just the way the economy works, and we need to at least keep up with that, or else we're actually, for lack of a better way to describe it, we're actually lowering our own rates if we
Right.
don't keep up with it. So that is the big topic that I feel like a lot of the listeners are probably going to want help with is figuring out how to raise their rates for return clients, right? Because raising your rates for a new client, like, yeah, it's always stressful, but it's like an internal stress. It's just you not necessarily having enough confidence.
That's exactly the word
self-confidence.
I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Confidence.
it's just not having enough self-confidence to say the bigger number, right? But when it comes to return clients, there's also that second level of the interaction. The other party in that conversation already has some expectations. So I have ways that I raise rates for past clients and that I always tell my students to try, but I would love to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, about raising rates specifically for current clients, returning clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that I've had to do. I haven't done it probably enough because I've definitely have some people that have been grandfathered in or whatever with specific rates. But I had one client, not so long ago that I had grandfathered in at like a way too low rate, and then I guess this was like maybe 8 months ago or a year ago. I just kind of like pulled him aside and said, "Hey, like, this is great working with you and everything. And I know I gave you like a really good rate back in, it was like in the middle of the pandemic also. I was like, I gave you this crazy good rate during the middle of the pandemic when work was just not happening as much for me. Um, and like you see that the economy is changing. There's tons of inflation. I can't, this is not sustainable for me anymore. I can't keep working with you if I'm doing this old rate. I'm going to give you, I'm going to, I'll give you I'm going to raise the rate. It's not going to be as high as my new rate for new clients, but we're going to get closer to that direction because otherwise I'm I'm dead in the water. So just like, just telling you I have to do this. And I was just kind about it and straightforward about it. And he's like, oh, all right, I understand. Thanks so much for telling me, And that was like
Yeah.
pretty positive experience. That's basically how I went about doing it recently. What do you think about that?
Well, and how did it go? Like, how did it? Not just the conversation itself, but how did that relationship continue after
Yeah.
that point?
So it continued okay after that for a while, and then things stagnated, and he still hasn't finished the song. And he decided at some point that it actually was too expensive for him, and now he's been working with my editor, one of my editors who's local, and I actually don't know what's up, but I think I still think they haven't finished the song. So I don't know if that's like a combination of being in a country at war or budgets or what exactly has been happening. It could be an amalgam of things, but I think they were planning on coming back to me when they were ready for mixing. They just didn't want to spend like the rate for studio hours.
Got it. Okay. So can I propose an alternative way to get the same like financial result, but in a different way?
Sure, I'm all ears.
So I guess like the big, I'll tell you the way that I do it, and then I'll tell you kind of like my thought behind it. So let's pick some numbers. I'm just going to pick some numbers that are easy to do math wise. Okay. So let's say, I mean, this is definitely a conversation that I had, a long time ago, like years ago, when my mix rate was like $300 a song. Okay. And then I had a client come back and I liked working with them. They were great. And they liked working with me. They were really happy with everything we did. But my rate at that time was now 500 per song for a mix. And what I said to them when they asked me about doing another song, I wanted to go into it in a more positive way and in a way that I can actually use it to show appreciation to them, but while also getting what I want, which is more money, right? So what I said was this. I said, hey, I'm so excited that you want to do another song with me. I had a great time before. You're awesome to work with. Just so you know, my rate now for new clients is $500 a song, but I love working with you. I don't want you to be paying that price. So if you'd be down to meet me in the middle at 400, I'm happy to give you a $100 discount because you're the shit, and I love working with you. And if that works, let me know and we can go forward.
Yeah.
So I literally just split the difference with them, but I put it in a way of like framing it in a positive light of, I want to show you appreciation. I'm so thankful that you want to come back and work with me. I want to give you a discount, as opposed to the way that you were doing it, which is like the world is difficult, which it is. I'm not saying that I'm not negating your emotions by any fucking stretch. Okay. So don't,
but
I know
that's not the client's problem.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's, in a way, the way that you handled it made it about you, and the way that I would handle it makes it about them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't remember verbatim exactly what I said, but I definitely also included like, hey, like this is what I'm charging other people, and obviously it's been great working with you, but I have to raise it,
Yeah.
And like,
I think, but I think the key difference is, instead of saying I have to raise it, it's like, I want to offer you a discount. I want to give you
that's
discount.
Cool. No, that's a cool reframing.
Yeah. And like I said, like I know that that I'm not negating your feelings, right? I'm just saying it like 1,000 times because the listeners that may not know me, I don't want them to think, wow, this guy's a dick. I am, but it's coincidence.
Has nothing to do with this.
Nothing to do with this. But it's just about, like having them going into it with a positive standpoint, trying to like make it about like the team, right? Making it about them and like us working together collaboratively, as opposed to like having kind of like a negative vibe, not like a mad vibe or a mean vibe, but just like it's not as not as good of a vibe.
Yeah.
When ultimately it's just a matter of like how you frame it. You're still like both things would be true, even if that is why you're raising the rates. You don't have to necessarily say that. But either way, you're still like meeting in the middle. You're still giving them a discount. You're still making them feel appreciated. But this is just like leading with the appreciation and keeping the, behind the scenes reasoning to
Private.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then offering it as a discount as opposed to, this is just the new rate.
Yeah. And what I always do too, and I don't know if you do this, but I'll always add like the discount as a line item in the invoice. Yeah. So it'll always have.
This is something I've been doing for a while. I love doing that, adding it in. Yeah. So just so they know, like, hey, like you're getting a good deal,
Yeah. And my favorite thing to do is when I itemize that discount, give that discount like a quirky name that's like an inside joke about who we are. That's like or who I make that an inside joke about about them and about the relationship that we've had so far, just as a way to make invoices feel personal and fun, which is usually like the least personal and the least fun document in the entire process.
Yes.
And it's a way to make them feel appreciated and that you actually care, and they're not just a PayPal notification.
Right. This is the IPA discount or whatever. Something stupid. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
So that's grandfathered in clients and how we slowly can dial it up to match the economy.
Yeah, and the number that you end up at and that you propose to them obviously is up to you. And I think the benefit to doing it that way is that it also gives you some leverage in case they can't meet you in the middle. Like if they come back and say, no, honestly, all I've got, I can only do 300 or whatever the number was.
Right.
Then at least you're in a position that you can negotiate on the terms too, because the negotiation is a two-way street, right? Like if they can't meet you where the dollar amount is, then you can say, okay, I really love your stuff. I really want to work with you. I can do it for 300, but the timeline's going to be longer, or there's going to be like a limit to the number of revisions, or whatever the scope of it that you want to adjust to match it. Because I think a lot of people, the reason that they're afraid to raise their rates is because they're afraid that people will say no.
Right.
And then
the fear of rejection.
It's the fear of rejection. But if they say no, then you can just figure out, how to make it work for their budget. But it doesn't mean that if they say no, you have to just collapse and give them everything for a lower price. It's just it's a question of how can I make this work? How can I adjust the scope of what I'm doing that still works for that budget? If you want to do that, because you can also, if it's a pain in the ass client, then instead of 300, it's 800, whatever it is. You can do that.
Right.
That's
this is
something I do.
Yeah. Benefits of being a freelancer.
Yeah, exactly. I call it the jackass surcharge.
That's really good.
And I don't think this person would listen, but I had a client that I definitely gave out a jackass price to, and they're not going forward with it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sometimes that's just exactly what you need to do to turn away a red flag client.
Yeah.
And that's a different topic for another day.
Yeah, well, a great topic though.
Yeah, totally.
But I do want to say that the negotiation side, the ability to adjust the scope, that is something that most producers and engineers, I'd say everybody listening to this knows that you should do that and knows that you can do that, but a lot of people are nervous about it or don't know how to handle that. And because of that, they talk themselves down on price before they even say the number. And I was talking to one of my students yesterday, and the I think there was a range of rates he was thinking about for this project, and it was like $600 or $700. Like it wasn't a big range.
Hmm.
And he was thinking, oh, I'll say it's like 700 for a single for mixing, or 600 per song mixing if it's like an EP or an album. And I said to him, well, why don't you just say 700 per song no matter what, and then wait for them to ask for a
Discount.
wholesale discount, and because they might not, and you could right there, like if that's 10 songs, that's $1,000 you're leaving on the table because you're assuming they need that. Right.
Yeah.
And again, like if you say 700, this is the key point I want to make. If the difference in price between what you want to say and what you actually say is only 15%, 20% different, if they ghost you on the higher number, they were never going to pay that lower number anyway. Right? Like if $700 is a total complete like non-starter, 600 probably wasn't
In the
going to be
cards
doable
either.
anyway. It wasn't in the cards either. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's no reason not to say a higher number, because if they say yes, great. If they say I can't do that rate, I can do X, then you're in the position to decide.
Right. The ball's in your
What-
court now to
Balls in your
decide
court. Yeah.
how much you're willing to be flexible. So then you could lay your cards out on the table. It's just classic negotiating, right? This is just this is what we do every day here in at the market in the Middle East. But
But it's also not something. But it's not taught at audio school.
Yeah, not taught.
I mean,
I'm sure.
maybe it is now. I hope, but at least like for a long time, like I have a degree. My degree was in orchestral percussion performance, and I even had classes on how to teach, and never once was I taught how to charge. Like it was all like, oh, perform. Like you're gonna have a career in performance, and not a single session of any class was talking about like how to actually ask for money.
I mean, in high school, it's the same thing. Like you learn all this like stuff that you never use in your life, and nobody teaches you how to change a tire. Nobody teaches you how to do taxes or like to prepare for any of this stuff.
Yeah.
They don't prepare you for the real economic life in school.
And I wonder if I never put two and two together here, but I wonder if that lack of a foundational understanding, at least here in the States for sure, that is one of the root causes for that lack of self-confidence.
Yeah, it could. There's probably a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that definitely could be.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure, go for it.
So you don't have to use actual numbers, but when's the last time that you actually did like a significant price hike?
I don't know if I've ever done a extremely significant price hike. It's always been sort of incremental. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it.
What have the increments been?
Increments will be like, let me think. Where's my math today? Like maybe 20%? 15%, 20%?
That's still pretty significant.
That's chunky?
It's nice and chunky. I think it's a good chunk.
Yeah, like I've never done like the double your rate thing, Like that, I know some people do that. But guess that's never really been my vibe. I sort of am raising it slowly as demand for me goes up and as inflation goes up. So just slowly sort of like kind of looking at what my expenses are, what I actually need to make a living versus what I used to charge versus, how busy I am, what I can afford, how many projects I can afford to say no to if I'm too expensive. That's sort of like the equation And there isn't really method to it other than kind of like, keeping all those things in mind and kind of just making an instinctual judgment of what that new price should be. But I guess my question for you is like how, I don't know, maybe I could tell you how often I'm raising it. Maybe you could tell me if I should be doing it more. Um, like, I don't know if I'm raising more than once a year, How often do you raise your prices? And it's not necessarily because it's a year has passed. It's just because I see that the things on the ground are, the environment is different, that sort of
Yeah.
will be more of the impetus.
I almost want to say every couple months, every 2 or
Really?
3 months, maybe. Yeah. Well, it's all about, I guess, raising your rates. When I say, raising my rates, I think it's more a matter of throwing out higher numbers. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to land on, right? But I could say a higher number, and then that gives me the flexibility to, take a step back on the scope, right? So one thing I wanted to mention back to what you said was that, you're not doing like the double your rates thing, but you're doing like incremental changes. And I think that's just as helpful, right? Like it's because whether you double your rates now or you raise your rates slowly or raise your rates like incrementally over the course of a period of time until you're double what you were at the beginning of
Right.
that period. Like either way, you're still getting there. And then I guess it's not a question of how often you're raising your rates. I guess maybe it's more of a what does the trajectory look like,
Mm.
more so than the quantifiable number of times that you've raised them. So, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I think before I started working with my manager, David, at Stateside, I think the most I was like regularly getting for a mix is about half of what I get now.
Wow. And how long
Um,
have you been with management? Like a year and a half?
we officially started January of last year.
Oh,
So
so just a
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Shit.
But the thing is, I think David will be the first one to tell you too. Like he didn't get me any clients. Like it's not like he's bringing people in. I'm not working with with label artists. Like I'm still, I'm on boots on the ground. Doing
Yeah.
outreach, meeting people the old way. It's just having somebody in my corner to constantly remind me to raise my rates, kind of like I do to all my friends, where I'm just like, I'll randomly like harass
Right.
friends I haven't talked to in like
It's
a couple
easier
months.
sometimes to harass your friends and try to help them out rather than yourself. Maybe
Yeah, and I think
that's a self-worth thing.
yeah, and I think so many of us in creative fields, like we are such big cheerleaders for our friends, and yet we're
Yes.
such nervous Nellies for ourselves.
Yeah. We're
And
taught to be
when it comes to
modest,
this, yeah, yeah, we're really supportive to our friends, but it's one of those things like you know, uh, treating others the way that we want to be treated, but then we
Right.
kind of forget to treat ourselves that way too.
Right.
And
Put other people on a pedestal and remember yourself eventually.
yeah, yeah, and so I wanted to explicitly mention that because it's not like working with management suddenly made my rates higher. It was just that I had someone to say you should be like you're not charging enough. You should be charging more for this.
Right.
And
He also has
someone
like
said like
he has like a bigger view on the industry as at large, and he also sees the value that you're bringing to projects, and he has like an objective vision of like the worth that you're bringing to every project, and he has a better idea that like actually you could be charging more than this than you can because you're so in your world, you know what I mean?
yeah,
You're not seeing the bigger picture as objectively as he is.
yeah. And I mean like one of the clients I'm working with is I think I'm getting close to triple what I would have charged him had I met him, a year and a half ago. And the thing is, like, it's not like anything is really that different about me. Like, yeah, I'm like a year and a half better at mixing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like anything really that big significantly changed, but having somebody there to remind me to try it, to just to like give me to reassure me that it's going to be okay if they say no.
Yeah.
That's really it. That's the hardest part of raising your rates, is being okay with somebody saying no. But the more no's that you hear, the more yeses you're going to hear. I'm sure there's like a more
Or
eloquent
the right yeses
way
you're
of
going
saying
to
that.
hear. I feel like we keep
Yeah.
going back to this topic of like, just like not being afraid of like the no, not being afraid of like rejection. We had the whole criticism episode. Like the sooner you could build up your calluses for all of these things, the better, because you just need to like you need to have heard no enough. You need to have been rejected enough to kind of just like become zen about it and move past it, so that
Yeah.
you can really just kind of be more fearless,
Yeah.
and just make those choices based on objectivity rather than doubt.
Yeah. And I'll say too that it can really be the most important thing that you can do when you're trying to raise your rates, when you want to convince yourself, that the number should be higher. The not so secret that I like to do is really lay out and explain all of like what the experience is going to be like for my client if they do hire me before I give them the price. Because for two reasons. One, if I am able to say, if they ask me for a price for a mix, right, like a mix and master, I could say, oh, my price for that is X. Or I could say, like, if I say, oh, my price for that is $1,200. Cool. If I say, oh, sweet, thanks for reaching out. Usually for this process, I will, go back and forth with you. I will make sure that I'm sending you like a vibe check version as we go, just to make sure that I'm always in alignment with your vision. And as we start to get closer and closer, I'll start, we'll start doing more revisions that are a little bit more fine tuned, because I really want to make sure that first we're in the right ballpark, but then I want to make sure that we're like on the right blade of grass on the field. And when we're all happy with this, like we're going to go until we're all happy. So like I don't do any limits on my revisions. We're going to go till we're all happy. And when we're all done, I will send you the full version, a karaoke version with the lead vocal muted, so that way you can do like versions for social media if you want, or if you need to perform it live without a band, you can still do that. Send an instrumental. I'll give you all of the stems, so that way you have those for remixes or for sync or for backing tracks for live shows. And I'll have all those backed up on my Dropbox as well, so that way if you need them, if for some reason you can't find the link and you need them last minute, just shoot me a message and I can send you the link, because I've got it all backed up. For all of that, my price is X. My price is $1,200 or whatever it is. That comes across very differently than just saying the price. And what that enables too is, not only am I giving them a real vision of the value that they're going to get, and if those things, if the way that I handle things are important to them, it's going to seem like a no-brainer to them. But also it's a way for me to kind of remind myself all of the things that I do for my clients. And that makes me feel a little bit better. Because if I think, oh, I'm just going to do a mix for them, the price that feels good to me might be lower than, oh, I'm going to do this and that and the other thing and all of this, and then we're going to go until we're done. Like, then it's like, okay, I'm reminding myself how much work I actually and how much care I put into this. It makes me feel better about saying that
higher number. Yeah. And I'm curious, like when you talked about like maybe if you have to give somebody a discount, or you're like meeting them halfway because they're a returning client, those are some of the items of the scope that you're maybe changing if you have to, in order to like get back to the price. So it'd be like, okay, there's a revision thing. Now it's up to 3 revisions, and like I don't know, what else would you be willing to like compromise
the timeline
on?
like the timeline, yeah. And when you do it that way, and it's also why I don't give like itemized pricing of the different things of like, oh, the mixing is this, the mastering is this, and blah 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 blah. Just give them one number for the whole thing, because then I can decide, okay, based on the price on the budget that they have,
Yeah.
I can be the one to decide what makes sense for that number and what kind of things to pull back. And if I start to say, oh, well, I can do it for that rate, but I wouldn't be able to start it until, for two and a
March.
half months. So till March, yeah. I guess it's
Well,
funny now because
this
it's
will be in
Wednesday.
March. We
Yeah,
won't be able
well,
to do
because
it
like
till
right
May.
now, I was gonna say right now it's Wednesday, February 28th. So March is literally 2 days from now. So it's like I
Well,
don't know
thanks,
if that's
thanks to the leap year.
yeah.
Otherwise, it would be tomorrow.
Yeah, so but my point being, that allows them to decide how important those things are. That allows them to decide how important the timeline is, how important revisions are, rather than me just saying, okay, I'll just do the lower rate and completely cave.
Yeah. It's like it's cool like that you could, you're holding some things close to your chest that you can kind of like break out to kind of help you retain your value.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe that, but it's like you're not putting all your cards out on the table and saying, "All right, fine. We'll just go down to like $700, you know?" It's okay, if that's the price, here's some things I can give you. Or maybe we can go here and then I'll give you a little bit more. It gives you more leverage. That's the word.
And I think what I end up doing a lot of times too is I'm very thankful. I love the people that I work with. Like I genuinely do. So if I do have that conversation and if they can't do the full price and we kind of renegotiate the scope of it, or I guess we negotiate the scope of it, a lot of times I'll end up giving them the full thing anyway because I want to keep going until we're happy,
Yeah.
because I'm like excited about working on the song, and I might tell them I can't do it for 2.5 months, but maybe I can actually do it in like a month. But I just wanted to give myself enough time for other projects. So I might still over deliver.
Yeah.
But if I can't over deliver, I'm still delivering at what we agreed on and everybody feels good about it.
Yeah. I
And if
like having that little space to over deliver sometimes because that always delights clients. Like I recently I had a client that I did a mix for, and I didn't include stems in it because he asked me about stems afterwards. And I said, "Oh yeah, you want stems? Like that's no problem, but I have to charge you a little bit more for the stems, you know." And I kind of just said like it'll just basically be an hourly thing, depending on how long it takes me to do your stems, because I don't know how granular you want to be with the stems. And I just did the stems based on what I thought was good stems, and it took me like I don't know 15, 20 minutes. I just threw it in. I was like, forget it, Oh, here you go. Here are the stems, and hopefully that felt like an over delivery because it was something that I said I was going to charge him for, and in the end it was just like that was easy enough. Let's just take it. It's a gift.
So the two things I want to say about that. Number one, that's why, like, for when I was mentioning the things that I include, I like all of my clients usually
Ask
want
for
that
stems.
stuff. So yeah, so I just do it. But
I know,
that's
I know.
why I lead with that and kind of say like I'll include this in the price. That all of this is included.
Things I should probably start including in my rates, right?
Yeah, especially if it's stuff that you can do
Knock
quickly
it
and
out.
easily knock it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yes, I was going to say that that's why whatever it is, whoever's listening, whatever your normal process is, it's all about just communicating that experience before they work with you. I'm not saying that to raise your rates, you should start giving mixed stems. To raise your rates, you should start doing XYZ. No, it's like whatever your current process is, like figure out what are the things about working with you that makes your return clients want to keep coming back, and just make that part of the pitch. Just like make them aware of what the experience is going to be like. Describe the experience of working with you in a way that and the emotional experience, not the logistical, I'll send you an invoice and then you send your files through this upload link. I mean, like the emotional experience of what it's like to have you on their team. And when you lead with that, that's the way to really like soften them up and make them feel good about it.
I just want to get practical for a second. So
Yes.
I'm all about this, but let's say like someone's like just contacting you via text message or WhatsApp or whatever it is. Do you get these people on the phone and explain all these things to them, or is it? I know you have like these nice PDFs that you send people as like your proposals. What does that usually look like for you specifically?
So the proposals I only ever really send when it's a full top to bottom production. which I do very few.
Got it.
And the reason I'm doing it then is because if somebody's coming to me to do a full production, I'm 9 times out of 10, 19 times out of 20, I'm not doing the production all on my own. I'm usually bringing in a co-producer that is just a badass in that style. And I'm coming in towards the end of the production. Like I'm there during like pre-pro and during the end of production, kind of doing the additional production stuff that's segueing into mix. But the bulk of the production, the tracking, all of that stuff, I'm usually not doing myself. So having a proposal enables me to explain all of that, introduce all the people that are going to be involved in it, what they're going to be doing, what the experience is going to be like, what the timeline is going to be like, what the goals of each stage are for the artist. But for mixing, I can usually just, usually the process is me, asking a lot of deeper questions about the song and like what their goals are for it, getting a chance to listen to where it's at now, trying to get an understanding of what not just the sonic goal, but also their career goal for the mix. Like, is this going to be, the debut single of your new era, or is this just an emotional song that you wrote to process when your dad died? Like there's no right or wrong answer, but that does give me a sense of what the purpose of the song is besides just a single. And it enables me to get a bit deeper into their emotional state to understand what it is that they're really trying to achieve. So then when I have that, and I can also listen to the demo that they have or the rough mix, then that gives me a chance to figure out what needs to happen to get it from point A to point B. And that enables me to give them a price. And I usually will have, now since I have management, I'll usually have David have the conversation with them about like the budget and the timeline. But really, I'm the one kind of figuring out what it should be. And then David's the one actually convincing them to pay that rate, but I'm the one that's
does he get on the phone call? Does he get on the phone with your clients, or does he just like email them and does it all over?
It's usually email you, and it's usually very practical, because by that point, they're usually pretty convinced they want to work with me.
Right.
And
so you're doing you're basically doing all this without even lifting up a phone call, without even getting on the phone.
Yeah, I just I've got it down to not to a science, but like I have a
system.
Good sense. I have a good system, but it's a good emotional system. I know how to get them to say in their words what their real desire is for the project, not just I want a good mix, or I want this to get mastered. Like it's like no, I've been struggling to feel like I feel like I can't express myself artistically, and I think the fact that I've been trying to do the mixes myself for all these years is really getting in the way. And I feel like I have something important to say and I really want to say it, but I don't want my own mixes to get in the way of my message. And I really think that having somebody that has more experience and has the depth of knowledge of the style to be able to help to fix some of those things, like to replace drum samples and find things that sound more mature, that's going to be really beneficial to me. And when I hear that, that's a lot more than like, yeah, I'm looking for someone to mix my song.
Yeah.
Because then I can go into it, I can respond to that from a much more emotional space rather than coming back at it from a logistical space. Because the deeper you can get into the emotions, that's the way to build trust. And you can even do that through DMs too. Like it doesn't have to be on a Zoom call. It can just be through DMs or voice notes. But that's really it. It's just getting to the emotional drive as soon as possible, because then you can react and you can respond from that same place.
Yeah. And that gives you clarity about why you are probably the right person or not the right person to do this. And that gives you even more, I guess, confidence to give the rate that you're after,
Yeah. And I know you were like, I want to talk about something practical. And then I immediately went into like, it's all about the emotions. But that's my process in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm more likely to get to those emotions getting on a phone call with somebody than via DMs, at least thus far. Because I feel like the things that I have confidence in, I'm able to convey that over a phone call very well at this point.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, having a conversation and asking about those goals. And so for me, like, I feel like the phone call, which is something that I honestly hate doing because I'm a millennial, is actually a place where in areas that I have a lot of confidence in, I can do a really good job at like getting a person to feel like I'm the right person for them because, you know, I'm confident and I'm able to, you know, understand where they're coming from and kind of give them some answers of like, oh yeah, I get that, blah blah blah, and just show them that I'm on the same page as them or understanding their page at the very least. So I feel like
Yeah.
for me, like the phone, getting on a phone call is that kind of like solidification of like, yeah, I could be the right person for you, and maybe implying that my rate will be worthwhile, you know?
And I totally see that. I think my approach to it, and this comes down to like the real crux of why I feel social media is so important for my business,
Mm.
is that my social media content and like my website kind of does that convincing for me. So they already have a sense of
Right.
me, and like it's the first face to face. I guess their first like experience of getting to know me isn't on the Zoom call. Like they've already seen my videos. They've already read my website, which is like very much like especially my new website, very like directly pointing out like their pain points, and like when they're there, like they know right away that either I'm the right person or I'm not. So that enables me to not have to do that kind of convincing on a call. And I think that's why I'm able to do so much through DMs, because a lot of that work is done
Right.
for me. The
They're already
importance of
warm
them,
leads, you know, so to
yeah,
speak.
they're already warm leads. They've made themselves warm leads, which not
Yeah.
only enables it to be more efficient from a getting them to feel comfortable standpoint, but also
Yeah.
it's a lot more scalable because I don't have to be on a Zoom call with every possible lead, especially when I'm not even sure that I'm the right fit. I can then spend those conversations just figuring out if I want to do it, not spending the conversation trying to convince them
Yeah.
to want
Oh,
to.
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I am
Oh
also
yeah,
trying to figure out if it's right for me when I'm on the phone call. And yeah, not usually Zoom, like face to face, usually just like phone call. Um, and often those people are warm leads, but they just need a little extra caressing to like
yeah,
say, "Oh, this is a real person. He understands." Okay, great. Like it's not just like what I saw on the website looks great. You know what I mean? It's is oh this person's here and he's real. And for me, I think for me that works. But you know,
yeah,
maybe my website needs a little bit of extra tweaking, and maybe we should do another episode about websites down the line.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say there's no one way to do it, right? The way that I do it works really well for me. But all I will say is I feel like
Yes.
every freelancer owes it to themselves to try to figure out as many different ways to handle it as possible, because I do have clients that we get on a phone call before we get there, and I feel very comfortable on those calls as well. I think it's just that in my experience, I've talked to many, 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 many producers and engineers who want to get on a Zoom call because that's the only way that they feel comfortable doing it, or like meeting somebody in person because that's the only way they feel comfortable. And I just hope that anybody that has that kind of a sense, that kind of like that self-aware like feeling of that being the case for them, I just want them to ask themselves, am I doing it because that's the best way to do it, or am I doing it because it's the only way that I feel comfortable yet? And challenging them to try it in other ways as well, because the more ways, the more different entry points that you feel comfortable making them feel comfortable, the more opportunities are going to come your way, because not every artist wants to get on a Zoom call. Not every artist wants to get on a phone call.
Right. Well, the reason why I brought all this up is because of the way you're like presenting all of the things that you're offering for that rate before you even get to the rate itself. So like practically for someone who doesn't yet have management, such as myself, so how would you, let's say, present all of the tangibles and intangibles of working with you before presenting the price over text or email?
I'll say this: it's not, my process for that has not changed since getting management. Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing the same thing I was doing before. So the only change is, you know, instead of us having the conversation, me presenting all the fun they're going to have if they hire me, and then me giving them a number. It's just me telling them all the things, explaining to them all the fun they're going to have working with me, and then David tells them the number. That's the only difference. So it's not like anything's fundamentally changed. The only thing that's fundamentally changed is Dave tells them a higher number than I would have said. That's really it.
Amazing.
But yeah, the presenting that and presenting all of that experience that they're going to have in a way that makes them like see themselves going through it, and they imagine themselves going through the process. Like, that's still on me. That's always going to be on me.
Love that. Yeah. That kind of, yeah. Imagining that, I like the way that you said it, like imagining the process, and that definitely puts like a nice taste in their mouth of something like, yes, I do want this experience. Let's do this, And that,
Yeah,
that
'cause
hopefully segues to a yes.
Yeah, and because really, like, sales is storytelling. That's all it is. Except they're the main character.
Yeah.
And I always tell my students to check out Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, like the business book.
Start with, no, that's not Start With Why. That's
Simon
another one.
Sinek.
Yeah.
But Building a Story Brand, the whole concept of it is that so many businesses get their marketing wrong because they position themselves as like the hero that's going to come in and solve all the problems, when in reality everybody sees themselves as the hero of their story. And the approach in Building a Story Brand is more about, they use cinema and storytelling as a way to kind of describe a lot of this. So one of the examples that they use is that every customer is the Luke Skywalker in their own journey, and you'll be more successful if you can position yourself as the Yoda. So that's it's the way that it's presented in the book is a lot more about like marketing materials and for your website and things. And if you go to my website, carlbonner.com, for all of those listening, you'll see like that's how I try to do my website as well, like making everybody that's there on the site feel seen, right, and feel like imagine themselves in that. So I do that on my website. I do that in even on my social media. I do that in like the proposals that I send and emails that I send out. But I also do it in the conversations that I have. Like, I want to go into it, into a Zoom call, into a phone call, into a DM, not as, hey, I'm the fucking man, I'm going to crush this for you. It's like, I want to go into like, I understand your issues. I understand your needs. I understand, like, and I might not know them right away, but I'm going to ask the questions. I know the questions to ask you to get you to be able to express those desires and needs to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also know how to figure out how to help you achieve them. And going into those conversations with that approach makes them way more engaged, way more excited. They give you way more, a way deeper understanding of what they actually want. So your ability to guess the scope and predict it is a lot better. But then also, like, they're so excited about the fact that you give a shit and you understand what they're looking for, that is a rarity in, that for that, in the way that producers and engineers have conversations like that. And it really shouldn't be a rarity. Like, that's how we should all do it, in my opinion. But just going into it from that perspective,
yeah, I mean, I think
them so jazzed up.
You're making it sound so simple, but I think you actually do have a gift for this stuff. And I think most audio engineers are so focused on the audio and so focused on like the craft of making a mix or whatever it is, that they don't even think about any of the client communication, any of the outreach, any of the, the rates are just even like the rate is just like oh great, I get to keep doing my job. You know what I mean? It's you have this kind of you have a head for this. You know.
I hard disagree.
Go
I
on.
just practice.
No,
I don't have a gift. I just
Yeah.
I just practice it. I just do it. You know, and like you said,
Well,
like,
you're
many.
the smart guy that figured out that like this is actually what it's all about, right? Because without marketing, without figuring out uh like how to tell those stories and all that stuff, like you don't have a business. So like you need that stuff in order, and we all do. But I'm saying that like the reason why you come off as a rarity is because audio engineers are so like obsessed with just audio that they don't even think beyond that, you know.
Yeah, no, I can see
But
that.
as a
But
freelancer, you need to do those things,
yeah,
right?
and I think that's just a bridge that was never made. You know,
Right. Going back
in the
to our
approach.
earlier parts of the conversation, right? Nobody knows.
Yeah, we're not taught to think that way, and we're so focused on learning the skills. And I mean, learning those audio skills, they're the focus in audio school because they're the easy. I mean, like they're the easiest to test. You know, like they're easier to teach. They're easier to kind of, yeah. That's it. It's easier to
They're
teach,
they're easier
and
to
that's
they're easier to teach to people that have a mind that gravitates towards that stuff.
yeah, yeah, and it it's like the same reason why teaching historical factoids is easier to do than teaching historical context,
Hmm.
right? Because it's things do not things in history don't happen in a vacuum, but dates are easy to remember. Dates are easy to memorize. People's names, when was the Magna Carta signed, whatever. Like that's why in history classes in high school, at least here in the States, like that's why there was so much focus on that stuff because it's easier to test and easier to teach. I mean, that's kind of, maybe I'm jaded about that kind of thing, but I think there's a very similar situation in audio, whether it's in audio schools or it's on YouTube or it's on TikTok or wherever. And it's kind of a feedback loop where all of the focus or too much of the focus is on the technical side, is on the skill building, it's on the gear acquiring, it's on the plug-in purchasing, and when really the things that actually move your business forward and also move you forward as a person, as a creative, as a human, it's those emotional connections. It's the focus on developing the relationships. It's focusing on making people feel comfortable. It's the focus on making yourself feel comfortable charging higher rates, because if you actually care as much as you think you care, then you deserve probably a lot more than you're actually charging.
Yeah. And it's also like providing a service, and like the quality and the how good that service is, like we forget that we're providing a service and people make it about themselves, oh, like this is
Or
me expressing myself. Whereas, hey, you're the producer here, like you're the mixer here. You're providing a service of elevating the artist's song. You're there for the artist,
yeah,
you
or
know?
at least it's not. I don't think it's necessarily forgetting that they're providing a service. I think it's that people think that the service is the mix itself or is the mixing itself.
Mm.
And the act of mixing is honestly just a very small part of the actual service.
Right. It's
Because if
like
you think about it
why
as
do you go to a fancy restaurant, right? Like you're not just going for that really nice steak. You could have made that really nice steak at home or
yeah,
whatever. You're going for the ambiance, how it was served, the presentation. Like people pay so much more money to go to a restaurant that has amazing ambiance and is this food is served in like a beautiful way versus just like, like here's a burger.
yeah. Well, I mean, here's a simple thing back to raising your rates. Think about like restaurants that have like a long wait list,
Yeah.
right? You would if you had reservations at a restaurant that you had to book 6 months in advance, and there was an $80 steak on the menu, and you like steak, you're damn sure gonna pay $80 for that steak because that is such a, like that is like a not a once in a lifetime experience, but that is like a very meaningful, special experience. If that same restaurant didn't have a wait list and you went there tonight, there's no way in hell you would spend $80 on a steak. Even
Right.
though it's the exact same steak, same ambiance, same restaurant, but there is this sense of specialness to that
Yeah.
experience, to being there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as producers and engineers, like we go really far out of our way to try to give that kind of experience to our clients. Like it's not that giving great experiences, or at least trying to give great experiences, is the rarity. It's just, how do you communicate that to the people before they hire you? How do you let them know about that experience? And then they're like, oh, okay, that's really great. Because people don't like, even if you went to a restaurant tonight that had $80 steak and you really wanted that steak, like you went into that knowing what you're going to be getting. You're like, I am excited about going to this place. I heard it's fantastic. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get the steak. But nobody like walks into a diner like, oh, I'm just walking down the street. I'm hungry. I'm going to go into this diner. And then they see an $80 steak on the menu and order it. Like you don't do that on a whim.
Yeah. On a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, not making it a whim. That's why I talk about the social media content and the website, like helping to get their excitement up, getting that trust built. So that way when they
and
when
the
they see
intentionality.
and the intentionality. So when they see that $80 steak on a menu, they see it as a no-brainer because they've been looking forward to that steak.
Yeah. Treat yourself. Amazing. Carl, maybe we should wrap up this episode because we've definitely gone a little bit over. This is great.
Yeah.
Is there anything we could like say in conclusion about raising your rates? I guess figure out, I guess I'll go and then you'll go.
Okay.
Realize how much you actually are providing and
Write it down. Like literally
Yeah.
write it down. I think that's a really good exercise. Write down all the things that you do to go above and beyond for your clients. And when you see it on paper, you're going to be like, oh shit, I should be charging more money.
yeah, make sure, you're raising your rates and, along with inflation, along with what you need to actually be making, try to figure out a way to give returning clients what feels like a discount rather than just charging them more money. And just raise your rates sometimes, man. Just raise your rates. Anything else? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to get comfortable with raising your rates is by practicing raising your rates. So even if it's $25 here and there, like the next time somebody asks you for a price and you get a quote, figure out the number that you would feel comfortable charging and then just like add $50 to it. Like it doesn't have to be a huge leap every time, but if somebody says no to, like if you were going to say 600 and you say 650 and they're like, oh my God, that's way too much. They were never going to pay 600 in the first place. So like, just go up and before long, you'll realize, oh, everybody's saying yes to 650. And then you go up to 700, and it's just, it is doing it incrementally, but it's not incrementally once a year. It's like incrementally, like I'd almost say every time you get like 3 yeses, maybe is a good rule.
That's crazy. Yeah, I feel like so many people go through like a year or 2 years, just be like, yeah, that's my rate. They don't even think about it, that they could potentially be earning more, and potentially working with better artists that they're more aligned with, the ones that are hopefully saying yes to higher rates. So yeah, a lot of food for thought here. Any closing statements before we wrap this? I think we did a lot.
Yeah, we were going to do 2 episodes today, and I think we just kind of went in on this one.
Yeah.
Do it. I hereby double dog dare anybody listening to just add, I don't know, $25, $50, whatever it is, to the next invoice or the next quote that you send out.
Quote. Yeah. Excellent. Carl, I'm inspired, and hopefully we'll be able to continue raising our rates and doing this for longer
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me get on my soapbox.
Yeah, pleasure, Carl. Always fun to chat with you and usually to learn from you. So thank you so much.
Of course. Bye, Ben.
Bye, Carl.